Hello, everybody. My name is Tim. I go by Foamy Guy online. I'm going to be working a little bit more this morning on some CircuitPython library pull requests. Different than yesterday, if you tuned in. I made a few tweaks to the layout of the screen. Hopefully, it's going to get better little by little over time. But real quick, before I dive in, let me go through a little bit about what we're going to talk about, just for anybody who might be watching this in the future who is new to CircuitPython. So again, my name is Tim. Go by Foamy Guy most places online. On Twitch, it's FoamyGuy_Twitch. And on YouTube, it's actually different as well. Although I don't know if it shows up in the URL, but I'm Zabrabi on there because I had a very old YouTube account. But I've been contributing to the CircuitPython community, mostly libraries, for a little bit over a year now. And this videos and streaming is a new thing that I'm trying to get started up here. So CircuitPython, what I'm going to be working on in this video, it's a version of Python that runs on tiny computers called microcontrollers. You can see on my screen here is a picture or a camera feed here from a camera on my desk, and this is showing a Adafruit Pi portal, which is a microcontroller with a screen built into the front, as well as some sensors and things on the back. That's what we'll be using today in this video. CircuitPython is an open source project, but much of the financial support for it comes from Adafruit. So this video is not a paid endeavor, but Adafruit does pay me to work on guides and other software and things like that from time to time. And I'm definitely a big supporter of Adafruit and a customer of them myself. So if you like the kind of things that I'm working on in this video and you want to see more of this from people like me and others, definitely support Adafruit by going to adafruit.com and buying hardware from there. They have all kinds of neat stuff. Okay. With that out of the way, I'll dive in a little bit for the actual stuff that I'm going to look at today, which will be in the display text library. So display text is a library that is used with display.io. So any CircuitPython device that has a screen can use display.io, and then display text specifically will allow you to put text on the screen. So you can render it with different fonts. You can use the built-in font. You can use perhaps different language fonts if you had different language font files. In some of the newer versions of everything, we can even use icons like Font Awesome, if you're familiar with that. So display text is really cool. And today I'm going to be working on a PR, which should be fairly straightforward. We just need to switch a font file that's in the repository to a new one that has an open license that we can put in there as well. So one of the other efforts that's going on right now, Kattni and Dylan have been working on this a lot lately, is running pre-commit, and that runs a bunch of other tools on the code in the repository, like black code formatting, and also some other stuff, including one that's called reuse, which does some enforcements of license files to make sure that everything is properly has a license declared, and it's clear, what it is. And it's I think the idea is also it puts some lines in all the code that's formatted in such a way that an automated tool could read it out of there and maybe make a report or something like that about the code, to see what percent is open source or something like that. Maybe I don't know too much about it all the way, but we're going to be switching up one of the fonts and adding a actual license file for it. Real quick, let me switch. Okay. That's okay. So it's in the display text library, like I mentioned, Adafruit CircuitPython display text on GitHub. I'm going to open up local copy of it here, which I definitely have because I've done a fair amount of work on the display text library. So let's go this window. Display text library is one of the things, it's probably one of the earliest libraries that I contributed to, and it's one of the ones that I have the most kind of level of familiarity with. So it's one of the ones I work on a fair amount. I keep an eye on the pull requests. I try to review anything that comes through, and I'm always looking for ways to improve it. So today we're gonna add this font. We might, if there's time afterwards, depending on how long it takes, I don't know exactly how long it will take. If there's time afterwards, I might work on something else as well, which will be moving one of the recent features over from label.py into bitmap label.py, but I'll talk a little bit more about that later if I actually get into it. So the first thing we're going to look at here, this is the display text library. Let's just go ahead and get a working branch because I'm going to be making a PR, and in order to make a PR, it's easiest and best, I think, if we just make a branch to work on in the repository. So I like to do it this way. I don't have this memorized. I think it's like no track is part of the command. I found this out a little while ago, and I left myself a note for it in the Git, the help with Git on Discord here. I'll show, pulling this up here. So there's probably a much better way. I should make a script or something that will run this for me. But I tend to just look it up inside of this help with Git room because I happen to know I put it in there. So help with Git. This thing is not finding. I don't know why this is not wanting to search today, so maybe today's the day we're gonna have to figure this out differently. Weird. I don't know. Usually it would pop up a little drop down with people, but I don't know. I don't want to waste too much time on it, I guess. I'll try to do it. Let's try to do it from memory. We'll see if I remember how to do this. I think it's like git branch checkout. I'm gonna mess this up. Checkout. So we need to check out Adafruit main, but we want to make a local branch. Oh, bummer, man. This is why I should have either made a script for this or committed it to memory letter. Not just been relying on Discord. I really wish this would let me search. Why can I not search here? No results. It's not letting me search for anybody. It didn't even restart. This channel's not that old. Here it is. Checkout, yeah, it's definitely gonna mess it up. Checkout. Okay, so we need to choose a name for the branch. So I'm changing the font. I'm going to name the branch change font. We want to track the remote Adafruit master, but we need to make sure that it's master and not main, because the newer libraries are main, the older libraries are master. Master, okay. master, no track. So we want no track. The reason it does no track is so that my branch here will check out a copy of Adafruit master, but it says no track so that it won't be actually set to Adafruit master as the remote. So when I push to it, it will push to my repository, my, I guess, origin maybe? I don't know the correct terminology, but it will push into my repository inside of a branch that has this name. It will not push into Adafruit master, which is good. We definitely don't want to do that. Okay, so we have a branch now inside of Pycharm. It shows your branch down here in the corner by default, which is cool. So change font, and we can find the font file that's in here, right here, Helvetica Bold. So we're gonna get rid of this because we don't have a proper license for it. We don't know exactly what it's supposed to be licensed, and we're gonna add a font that we have a license on for sure. So let's find out where it's used. One of the things I like to do, I think Jeff Epler, one of the other CircuitPython community members, taught me this. You can do git grep, and it will look for all the usages of something. So I notice here I'm in the docs folder. I must have built the docs last time I worked on this. So I'm going to go up one to be in the root repository folder, and then I'm going to go git grep the name of the font. So Helvetica. I'm going to try it with just Helvetica. It'll probably get me part of the way there. Oh, I guess it looks like there's a license in the file, maybe? What is this? Generated by FontForge. Linotype. Has copyright dates. But it doesn't have, it just says all rights reserved. It doesn't have any kind of license identifier. And that's just into the glyphs down there. Yeah, so we don't want to use that one, but we did, this tells us where it's used in the project, which is really nice. So examples, display text background color padding, display text label versus bitmap label comparison. A bunch of these in the BDF file, which is the font itself. So those will go away as soon as we delete it. In fact, we could just do that now maybe. We'll delete it and that will get rid of all the ones that are coming from the file itself. One of the other really cool things about Pycharm, it has this safe delete. So I'm going to click OK on this delete thing. And it's going to pop up this window that's like, hey, you're about to delete this file, but it is used in some places. It has this cool tree right here that tells you all the places where it is used. So this is another way to find out where we're going to have to make changes, because we need to go into these files after we're done switching the font file, and then we need to actually change the font file into string here when it loads it in these examples as well. So this is nice that it finds all of these things for us. So we'll search the whole project. So it looks like there's just the two of them, and they are in background color padding and the comparison example. So we will remember to go back and get those after we change the font. So let's, we can delete this one. It's size 16, it says there, Helvetica Bold 16. So maybe we can keep in mind that size. We'll need to probably convert our font. And so we'll get to choose the size again, so we can keep it around that size, 16. It's bold. If we want to use a bold one, we can. Okay, so let's delete it. It's going to do this safe search thing. It's going to ask us if we want to refactor. I don't necessarily really want to refactor just yet. So I think what I will do actually is just jump outside of Pycharm and delete this. And that will make it not do any kind of refactoring. So let's grab a font that we can actually use. In the PR that is open on display text, Dylan and I were discussing this a little bit, and there's a link right here to this place, the leagueofmovabletype.com, and I have it loaded up right here in another tab. I have a pop-up in front of me. This is a cool website though, because it's got a bunch of fonts that are openly licensed. You can use them kind of however you want, and they have a published license that says, you know, you're allowed to use it and what all you're allowed to use it for and all kinds of stuff like that. So that's really cool. Okay. So we will just grab one of them from this website, and then we can use the license that goes along with it. So let's just take a look through here. Doesn't really matter, I don't think. So those fonts that are used in display text, maybe we can pull up the two examples. Those two examples, they were not specifically looking at that font for anything. It's not like they were trying to illustrate an issue with that font specifically or anything like that. So we should just be able to use pretty much anything. Helvetica. What does Helvetica look like? Maybe we could get one that maybe looks somewhat similar, possibly. Is Helvetica serif or sans serif? I don't know. Let's take a look. Sans serif. So we could pick something that's kind of like that, maybe. Blackout is sans serif, but it's reverse. Junction is a cool one. It's a little curvier than Helvetica. League Gothic is nice and bold. We had a bold font. It's very narrow though. League Mono. League Spartan. Maybe we'll do that one. It's bold as well, and it doesn't have serifs, and it's fairly plain looking. It doesn't look too crazy or anything, it seems. The characters will look weird on the tiny microcontroller screen, hopefully. So League Spartan will do this one. And so again, you know, all these fonts are licensed to use. They're openly licensed. So I'm going to download this file. Can go and find it. Downloads League Spartan. I've already had a copy of this. League Spartan, and right inside of here, ofl.md, this is the license file for it. See if I can open that right here. Okay, so you can see here, it's got a copyright date listed. It's got a very defined license, and it's very open as well. It says like all the stuff you're allowed to do with it. You can use it in open projects. You can distribute it. You can put it on your server for CSS and things like that. So you're allowed to do tons and tons of stuff with it. Basically, the main thing you're not allowed to do is just like straight up resell it as a font by itself. You can put it into your own software, sell your own software. You can't just like sell somebody the font file by itself. So this is the open font license. It's version 1.1, so we're going to make sure to specify that in the license file when we fix some of this stuff. First thing we need to do to include this in a CircuitPython project, we actually need to convert it into either BDF, or actually there's a brand new format that's supported called PCF, I think. Jeff just recently added support for that, so we could use PCF if we wanted. I think for now I'll just stick with BDF. That's a little bit older, and it's been supported for longer, and it will require us not to have to make multiple conversions of the font file. We can just convert it from one of these ones we downloaded from that website, League of Movable Type, and we can convert it right over to BDF, and we'll be good to go. Take a quick check on the chat. Okay, yeah. We had bold before, so maybe we could use bold again. The thing we need to do now is convert this into a BDF font file, because that font file that I deleted, that was Helvetica bold 16.bdf, which is the font file, again, that CircuitPython supports. So I think this tool, I already have this tool installed, OTF2 BDF, I think is the name of this tool. It's a free command line utility that lets you convert fonts. So I already have this installed, I believe, but this is the website where it came from. You could download it from here to get it installed, or I think I probably just installed it with my package manager. So I'm on Linux. I used app like, sudo apt search OTF2BDF or whatever. I found it listed in there, I'm pretty sure. So to use it, we can go to the terminal. It's a command line tool. OTF2 BDF. Let's just make sure it's working. Like maybe we could do help to see something. So I did it wrong there. OTF to BDF help. Yep. Okay. So that's definitely installed. That's the right command for it. Maybe we can figure out exactly how to use it. So I don't use it very often. I don't just have it memorized exactly how it works, but usually the help file is good at telling you. So OTF to BDF options, and then the name of the input font file. So the input font file could be either OTF or TTF. And in this case, we're going to be using OTF. So the main thing we want to specify maybe is the name of the output file, which it looks like is down here, -o out file. So let's do that. OTF to BDF. Options come first, so -o. We can name this, we'll just name it the same name. I'll do the bold one. So bold BDF, and actually we need to look for one more input option. We want to specify the size. Point size. It defaults to 12 points, and our Helvetica was on 16 points before, so why don't we just go ahead and do the same for this. So that's -p space and then the size that we want. -p space, whoops. The size is going to be 16. And then we need to specify the input font file, which I actually still have copied. I think I copied it a minute ago. So League Spartan Bold OTF. Enter. So we let that run. Goes really fast. And if we look back in the folder now, we have now League Spartan Bold BDF. One thing we could do maybe is add the size, since so BDF font files have a size embedded, whereas OTF font files, I guess, are a vector or something inside there. It can change the sizes in the client software. So, you load it up in Microsoft Word or text editors or whatever it's loaded in, and then you can set the font size, and it's able to figure that out from just the file. BDF font files are different though. There's a it's hard coded to one specific size. So this font file contains this font at size 16, and that's it. You could maybe, put it into a bitmap and then scale it afterwards, but it will get fuzzy and messed up looking potentially. Will not scale nicely, perhaps. So that's one of the main differences between BDF and OTF. Let me just check on the chat real quick again. Okay. So we got our file, we can copy it. We're just going to paste it into, I think it was inside of the fonts folder. Paste it right in there. Do we want to add it to the Git repository? Yeah, we can add it to the Git repository. That seems fine. Let's close that. Let's put that there. Now we can change the usages of it, and then we will test out those usages, then we'll add the license, and then that's all we really need to do. So those two files that used it, that was in right here, color padding, and the comparison one right here. So color padding. Can find the usage right here, Helvetica Bold. Looks like it's only used in the one spot, so we just need to change that. to League Spartan. One thing is, this would be one of the other nice things about Pycharm is it usually can figure this out for you. I think the thing is, because we're inside the examples folder, it's not able to figure it out. If we add this, I think it will help us. Yeah, there we go, League Spartan. So it's able to find it. It's also, that's one of the really nice things I like about Pycharm. It can it's smart about looking through your project folder and finding references to other files and stuff. So for CircuitPython, we don't want that there. We want to go back to just font / because on the CircuitPython microcontroller, it's going to be on the root of the drive inside a fonts folder. But that's a neat trick to have it look up the file so that I don't spell it wrong or mess it up somehow. I'll copy it from there and go to this one. Same thing, League Spartan. Now we can run these two examples just to make sure that they're working. So let's get a copy of the font file. I have my PyPortal loaded up here again. So here's the camera showing the PyPortal. Looks good. We have the CircuitPy drive right here. On my CircuitPy drive, it already has a fonts folder. And I might already have this font. No, it doesn't look like it. Yeah, it doesn't look like it. So let me paste a copy of it here. Show the file, copy that, paste that in fonts. And then I'll go to Moo for editing the code that's in CodePy. So I do use Pycharm for like pretty much all of my, project repository code editing, but for code that's on the device, specifically, I do use Moo for that. I don't tend to use Pycharm for it. Pycharm is one of the things it does is it saves like all the time instantaneously. So if you point it to a drive, a CircuitPy drive, then it will make it reboot all the time because it's saving with every change. This is the example code from the Bitcoin example that we were messing with yesterday a little bit. We don't really need to keep it in here. We could always reference it back from the project that it came from. So I'm going to delete that, and then I'll copy in this example code from the repository here. Turn this a little bit maybe. Paste it in there. And it does say League Spartan bold still. Okay, so we can maybe get the camera back and then save this. Try to scoot this over a little bit. So one of the things I noticed yesterday that I tried to improve was the layout of the screen. I noticed sometimes I was talking about stuff that was covered up with the chat panel and my camera panel there. So I tried to do a little bit better about that today. So anyway, though, here we go. We're going to save this. It's going to relaunch on the PyPortal. Code done running. So it looks like we got an error there. No module named IL something. I think it's a display driver. Let's just relaunch it here and we can see it more clearly. So Control C, Control D. Yeah, no module named IL9341. So the thing is, this is I see. This example was, when it was written, it was intended to be used with an external screen that's connected via the SPI bus. And the PyPortal, I mean, I guess it is connected by the SPI bus, but it's built in. So the code to access it is actually simpler. And one thing we can do is we could fix this while we're here. This is color padding. So I think what we want to do is make it so this example will run on on devices with built-in screens without having to edit it. I'm going to have to edit it right now. But I think for future people who come along and find this, we want it to work on built-in screens without them having to change anything. So we'll leave the code to do the external screen with some logic. I think some of these other examples, they have logic that does this. There's also this boilerplate here that we started using very recently. I think Carter, I believe, wrote this and made a guide page for it. So it's really cool. It walks people through how to set up external displays and the differences between internal displays and external displays and stuff like that. So we'll work that in as well. And we'll just go ahead and update this so that it will work properly. So one thing we want is to make sure to use a display variable. That makes this a lot easier to do because we can use the display variable and then, you know, the rest of the code can just make use of this variable here, display. So like, I mean, this code does it already, I guess. All the way down here, it's already got display.show, you know, display.auto refresh, display.show, all of this stuff. If, you know, sometimes you see code that's written where it will say board.display.show. So like, you know, down here where it says, you know, display.show, it would say something instead like board.display. Whoops, it's got to be shouty, that part. Display.show. And then, you know, you pass in a group or you pass in none or whatever like this. This is not as good. I'm guilty of writing code like this, but it's not as good because if you want to move it to a device with not a built-in screen, then, you know, you'd have to edit the code. Whereas if you set a variable like this, you change it this one spot at the top, and then it will work on the other device. You don't have to change it everywhere that you use it down in the rest of the script. So this is really nice. It also comes with this comment here that links to a guide page that says how to set all this stuff up. So we want to do that. We want to, I think we want to probably assume that it's built in first, and then if it's not built in, we will go ahead and do the setup code. Got the tabinator here, jumped into my lap, here we go. Made his way over to his chair. All right. Okay. So display board, so yeah, we want to just assume that that's gonna be true, I think. Or I guess what we'll do is maybe if you can check on board by saying, man, there's code that does this. I've written this code before. Let me see here. One of those. Let me close these. PyPortal. Use built-in font. Yes, this is the code right here. So maybe I should have started with the comparison one first. That's all right though. So it says if there is no display in dir board, then try to set up the external display, else just use the internal display. That's what we want. So we're going to move this over from the comparison one to the color padding one. We're also going to add that boilerplate comment here with the link to the Learn Guide. And I think I would like to switch it so that the built-in display is first, actually. So if display is in board, then do these things. And if display is not in board, do these things. That way our helpful comment there will be closer to the top of this file for people to find. Okay. Pycharm, I will say one of the, whoa, I don't even know what I just did there. Got some kind of stats going. One of the things that Pycharm does is it looks for duplicated code fragments in different files. And you know, it tries to encourage you to, I guess, you know, pull those out into a function or something, and then, you know, call the function so that you're not reusing code. There's not exactly a simple way to do that with these examples though, because you know, one person could be running one example and not the other, and we want to keep it so it's all contained in one file. So Pycharm tells me to do that, but we're not going to mess with it right now. We do want our label comments, like I said here. We don't need this one. We'll put this stuff here, use the built-in display. So this moved, importantly, this moved the import, it moved the import to inside of this else block. That way we only try to import it if we don't have a built-in display, which is perfect because we do, on the PyPortal, we do have a built-in display. Therefore, we don't have to import this thing. So therefore, I don't have it on my PyPortal, and that's why we got this error. So I'm going to take both of these. This ST779, this is also a different kind of screen, I think. And we'll put them both down here. Although if nothing uses this, we don't want to, I don't know if we want to leave it here. Just comment it out. Okay, there's a comment down here that sets it up. Okay. So, but a lot of this code moved though, I guess, up to that if statement. So yeah, most of this stuff is gonna get moved. We'll leave it in the comment for this one, and I'll put it back up here next to this one. Okay, so everything inside of here, we don't need to import this twice. First thing we do is release displays. So we can start deleting stuff here. We don't need that anymore because it's inside the if statement. We don't really need to print this. I guess maybe what we can do is print, I cut it. So what we'll do is print it inside of here. And we'll say starting external display. So at the end of the setup, it calls display.showNone. I guess to make it blank, or maybe does that put it back to the terminal? Maybe? Not 100% sure what that does. We'll leave it for now. So all of this should be getting done in there. SPI bus is getting set up. Yeah, TFT resets. All that stuff is getting done in the if block now. Trilock is all getting done up there. Display bus is getting done up there. We don't need to print the frequency. Width and height are declared up there. Display is made. So again, this one is making this display object, this display variable right here. So that's perfect. That way, if they use a custom display, then, you know, display variable will contain the custom display. If they use the built-in, because of that variable we created here, it will contain the built-in display. We don't really need to call display show none twice. So what we'll do is just delete it from the if block, the else block, I guess, actually. So that way it will do either branch of this if, and at the end of it, no matter which, it will do this display show none. So this comment is in case you want to use the built-in font. You could uncomment this and it would use terminalio.font, but we don't want to do that. We want to use our League custom, our League Spartan, because that's the one that we just added. So we need to make sure to test it. Okay, I think this is looking good now. Let's try to copy this to the device. the camera too. So there you can see we got a good result. Showing the font, it's got a bunch of different words on it, and it's changing the backgrounds. I think this example originally was it was meant to illustrate an issue that was occurring. The colors were not changing right or something like that. I don't remember the exact specifics of it, but something was going on, and this was an example that illustrated the issue, but it also turns out to be a good example that shows how to make use of setting the padding as well as colors in the background of your font, and then even updating them if you want to, like it's cycling through different colors there. So don't want to go too fast probably, but yeah, you can do some interesting cool effects like that. Okay, so that is working, and that's great. It's using our font. I think the font looks fine. Again, I'll pull up the camera real quick. I think that font looks fine, so that should be a suitable replacement for Helvetica. So we'll test the other one of these examples that we changed, because remember this one we also changed, League Spartan. And this one, it has a Boolean for use built-in font, but it is set to false, so that's good, because that's the same thing. We want to make sure to use our font file. This one's already got all the logic here for the built-in display. One thing I will do though, I'm going to go ahead and switch it around so that the built-in display comes first and the custom display comes second, and I'm going to add that helper comment that contains the link to that guide page. Our goal is to add that anywhere where we set up, anywhere we have an example in a repo, we want to have it done like this with the display variable, and we want to have a link to that page. That way anybody who finds any of these examples, no matter which device they're using, what screen they have, anything like that, they will have what they need to get set up. So I pasted that from else. We need to take this part, put it down here. Could leave that print. I think that looks fine probably. So this one is an example. Specifically, this example was just meant to show the differences between the bitmap label and the regular label. So at a high level, I'll give you a brief rundown of that. The bitmap label, it was created by Kevin, a community member. It's really cool because it takes all of the glyphs and it puts them into one bitmap object that you can further modify. Like you could change the colors on things by applying a different palette, or you could go and pick out different pixels and do different things to them. You can also use it for masking, so you can set the font to be transparent, and then you put that transparent font on top of an interesting background like a rainbow or a gradient or something like that. So you can achieve some really cool stuff with bitmap font, bitmap label. The other thing it does that's different is it doesn't make a tile grid for every letter, for every character in the label. Instead, everything just gets put into one bitmap and then put into one tile grid. So that gets into the weeds of display.io a little bit. If you're not familiar with that display.io, you probably don't know what I'm talking about. That's okay. We don't necessarily need it for this PR, but that's the main differences between the two. The way it works out is bitmap label tends to use a little bit less memory, especially if you have very, very long strings, because the way that label is making a tile grid for every character turns out to make it use more memory if your string is very big. So this example illustrates that by using one of each and showing the memory usage. So we'll go ahead and copy this. Ooh, I think I did paste accidentally. Yeah, here we go. What's up, buddy? There you go. Okay. Copy this. Put it on the PyPortal. This one already had the if statement, so it shouldn't fail, I don't think, for imports. Let's go to the camera. Oops. I guess that's actually all right. Let's zoom in a little bit there. Says, oh, we could see it in Moo here. Label has no bounding box. Underscore bounding box. I think it should not be underscore bounding box, should it? Is this code? This is coming from inside. It's coming from inside bitmap label. Interesting. Maybe there is bug in bitmap label. Self.underscore bounding box. This says it's in anchor point and anchor position. 600-ish. Let's just keep doing finds maybe. It's definitely setting self.bounding box here. Text bounding box. So there is a property. This is what I was thinking, is there is a property bounding box with no underscore, which will give you back the bounding box. Maybe I just have an old library. Yeah, that's probably what it is. Let me just update this before we go too far down the rabbit hole here. Display text fonts is on the drive. CircuitPy fonts. We'll go to CircuitPy. We'll go to lib. We'll go to display text. We'll delete this. Whoops. Lib. Paste this back. That's running. Nope, same thing. Okay, let's keep looking at this code. Inside anchored position right here, this is the one. Anchor point is calling anchored position. Anchored position is using bounding box. I mean, it should definitely have a bounding box. Let me run the bitmap label simple test. Or this is using anchored position. Well, let me start with the bitmap label simple test. Let's just make sure there's nothing all the way broken with bitmap label. Okay, so that's fine. That's our hello world. Everything is fine there. Doesn't want to focus very good, but you can see it there maybe. So bitmap label by itself is okay. What about if we did anchor point and anchor position? Anchor point and anchor position, these are cool. They're just different ways that you can change the position of the label on the screen, and you can do it relative to different parts of the label. So by default XY, X is on the far left and Y is halfway down, which is unexpected for some folks. Anchor point, you can set it anywhere you want though. So if we want to like center it, for instance, let's do that. We can say 0.5 X and let's center it on the top. So we'll say 0.5 X, but 0 Y. So centered horizontally and at the top vertically. And then we'll set the position. anchored position. Then this is the location on the screen. So we could do, let's just do, I mean, most typically you would see it, like if you were doing 0.5 like this, you want to put it in the center of the screen. I don't want to mess with that right now though, because that's extra stuff. I do happen to know, I guess the PyPortal, I think its screen is 320 by 240 or something like that. So the center should be 320 over 160. We'll just do it that way instead of dividing it by the width. So 160x, and then we'll just do like, I don't know, 30y for now. So let's see if I can get both of these things going here. Camera and the code and the potential error, maybe. Maybe I should do it this way. Save this to run it. None type is not callable. That's because this is a property, not a function. That works fine. So anchor point and anchor position are okay with bitmap label. Sometimes. Let's get that example back in. Let's do this. I think maybe this is because the font is, and not the font, the text. I think maybe this might be because the text starts out empty. And therefore it gets none as a bounding box. Let's see if that theory holds true. So it's coming from inside of init 146. Let's start at the top of the stack trace. Bitmap label, init. Let's turn this find off for now. What was that? 146. So it calls reset text. Reset text is declared right here. Reset text is doing stuff. Text does default to none right here. Some none checks here. Yeah. Well, if text is empty or text is none, then create a 0 size bounding box. So that should be creating a bounding box for us. I don't know why, I don't know why this would have changed, truthfully. Code 134. Let's look at the line in our own code. It's initializer, so it's going to be label anchor point, anchor position. But all of these have anchor point and anchor position. I wonder if some things are happening out of order, where it's not working for anchor point and anchor position if you pass them in the constructor like this, but it is working if you do them as properties like I did a minute ago. Let's test that. Simple test, we'll just use the simple test again. 0.5 and 0. Anchored position. These are properties. I messed that up again, so we'll set those with equals. 320, we did that. Yeah, 160. 30 doesn't really matter. And the truth is, though, we don't want to do these in here, actually. We want to do these in the constructor. There we go. There we go. Yeah, we got the same error. So it looks like it's been broken. Somewhere along the way, it got broken, and you cannot use the anchor point and the anchor position from the constructor for bitmap label. Let's check regular label. Hopefully it's not broken into the regular label too. No, that one's fine. There's the cam there, hello world in the center. So it's only a problem on bitmap label. So what we'll do for now, what will we do for now? We just need to make sure, I mean, I guess we already made sure League Spartan is working. We could fix the example. Do we want to fix the example in the same PR? I mean, I guess we already made a change to it because we've swapped around this if statement. We definitely want to add this helpful text here. How many labels? This makes a bunch of labels. No, it only makes 2. I think because the proper fix to this is inside a bitmap label. Something inside a bitmap label needs to change to make it so that this is not broken any longer. But I don't know that that's necessarily what we want to do right now. Let's see. Need to figure out how to. Should have probably done this before I got to being online. Need to figure out how to moderate the old Twitch chat here. Sorry if anybody is watching. Yeah. Awesome. I have no idea. Chat. Pause chat. Brief deleted. How do I delete? If I ban him, will it delete? Yes. Okay, that'll work for now. Sorry about that. Hopefully I'll get better at that as time goes on if I keep up with this. Where was I? My apologies. I think the correct fix for this is inside bitmap label. That's a little bit more involved, and I don't necessarily think it's best to do that inside of this PR because the intention of this PR was mostly just to change the font. Already changing around the display, the order of that if statement and stuff, we're already reaching a little bit outside what the scope was really meant to be. So I don't think I necessarily want to also try to fix a bug in the bitmap label in the same PR. So what I'm going to do is make an issue that says that this is broken in bitmap label. We can come back and fix that in a different PR. And then for now, what I will do is just edit this slightly to use anchor point and anchor position as properties instead of in the constructor. And that way I can validate that my new font is actually working okay, because that's the main thing we're changing here. That's the main thing we want to test, is that the new font is all right. So it'd be great if we could get this going without changing anything, but it's not so bad if we do this one thing, I think, just to prove that the font is working okay, and then we'll come back after the fact, make an issue, and then, you know, eventually a follow-up fix for this issue inside bitmap label. Come on. Okay. Bitmap label. There we go. Let's see. Okay. Bitmap level 1, we need bitmap level 2 also, same thing. Whoops, I got scale, come on, there it is. Bitmap level 2. Okay. Now we can run this, let's look at the camera. So I got an error there. Instead of trying to focus the camera, I'm just going to relaunch. We can see it in Mu what the error was. Unsupported types for sub. Boy, this thing is going crazy here. We could position unsupported types. These don't need to have commas. There we go. Okay, so you can see, maybe if I can get this example to focus a little bit here, you can see there's what this is supposed to look like. The label is on the right side. There's two of them, the red one, the yellow one. One of them has a bunch of text, one of them just has a little bit of text. The bitmap label is on the left side, and then if you look in the print output, it will say how much memory each one used by checking gcu.memfree. Okay, so this got it back to working, and again, I think the League Spartan font looks fine in there. I don't see any issues with that, so I think we're good to go here. The last thing we need to do to wrap up this PR we were working on is put the actual license file for that font into it. So where do the licenses go? They are... Well, so one thing is it needs to be in a folder called licenses, I think, and it's not been added until the other PR, this one. Let's look at this branch here, reuse. Reuse branch, yeah, it has this file, licenses, which has the name of the licenses as a text file. So these are not in my copy because reuse, this PR hasn't been merged yet, partially because it's waiting on this font to get updated. So it's kind of a chicken and egg problem. I don't want to mess up, I don't want to make it have merge conflicts. I think what I can do though is if I just create this folder, we can put ours in it, and as long as we don't, I mean, it's named differently, so I think maybe it won't have any merge conflicts, hopefully. Let's go to some of these things. Make a new directory. Licenses. So the license, again, I think, do I have this? Yeah, I have this pulled up here. This is the license. Copy that. It is, it's OFL version 1.1 right here, version 1.1, OFL 1.1. So it looks like that's the name, how the names of these files work. So we'll follow that convention. OFL, does it have dashes or something? Let's check. It has dashes if they're in the thing. Let's look at this. This is like the list of all of the proper things here. So yeah, it is OFL dash 1.1. Okay. Text is good. Yeah, we actually want it to have .text. I think it did, right? Yes. Let's do that. Text, and then we can add it. It's like that. Yeah, it's green now, so I did Control-Alt-A to add it there. So this is, you know, again, another really cool thing I like about Pycharm. In the project view over here, it shows highlights for the stuff that's been changed and then the different colors. So like green means that this is git add, right? This file is a brand new file. It didn't used to exist. Blue means that there's a change in this file, but it existed before, but now the text has changed. Red, you can see down here, red is it's not in the repository. So you can see I made this file here and I have it stored along with my local copy, but it's not checked in. So it's red here. It's never going to get pushed unless I come back and add it, but it's a temporary file, so I won't do that. Okay, we got the file here. Let's paste the contents of this. And the last thing we need is to make one of these .license files to make the SPD whatever pre-commit thing reuse be happy. So I'm going to copy the name of this file. I'm going to go new file, paste the name, put a .license, the end, add. And this needs to contain SPDX header things. Which we can copy from the reuse branch, maybe. And we'll put the correct things in here. So it's not for Adafruit. This is copyrighted by somebody else. Duplicate. It's also copyrighted by this. The identifier is OFL-1.1 for open file license 1.1. A lot of times there's a space in between these. I'm not sure if that's required or not. We'll put it for now. I think, is black gonna run on this file too? I'm not sure. Might get mad at not having a empty space at the end, possibly. Okay. So one thing that happens anytime that you make a PR, you know, or you try to change code in a CircuitPython libraries repository is that we have continuous integration. We have actions on GitHub that runs pylint in pre-commit, and you know, pre-commit runs black code formatting. So we need to make sure all of that stuff. We want to try to make sure all of that stuff is going to pass before we push it. That way, you know, we could try to fix anything that needs it. Before we push if it's not going to pass. So let's do that real quick here. Okay, just switch some windows around. All right. So let's run those two things. Since we changed those two examples fairly heavily, we'll want to make sure that they're both still passing. So pylint --rc file equals dot pylint rc examples display text label versus bitmap comparison. So we did get a bunch of pylint complaints, but I happen to know that when pylint gets run on the examples, these two things get ignored. Missing module docstring right here and invalid name. Those two checks are disabled for examples. So it's actually okay that we failed for all of those things. And it looks like those are the only failures. So I think we're fine there. Let's run it on the other file, which was display text, background color font, background color padding. 9 out of 7, 9.7 out of 10. So we got an invalid name. So just two invalid names, that's fine as well. We can leave those. Let's just do a black. Py35 on, we'll do those same files, examples, display text, label, unchanged, that's good. Last one, display text, background color padding. Got that one reformatted. Okay. It's a good thing we ran that. Otherwise, GitHub would have just complained as soon as we made a PR. So we got our license. Can try running the pre-commit. I don't usually do it this way, truthfully. Commit run all files. Must have done it wrong. Or this one doesn't have pre-commit. Because that must be part of that PR that is already open. So we can't run pre-commit. So, well, we could try to add it. I don't think we want to mess with that though right now. Okay. Hopefully reuse. Hopefully the way I did the license hopefully is okay. I think that's right. So we ran pylint, we ran black. I think we're ready. Let's go ahead and push this. So remember, if you remember back to the beginning of this video, the way that I created the branch is set up so that when I push it, it's going to push it to my repository. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Can get a quick summary here. So again, another really nice thing about Pycharm, the integrations with version control. Whenever I go to make a commit here, it shows me all the things that changed. And I can just take a quick look over them and make sure everything looks good. So you get this nice side-by-side change history thing. Make this bigger. You can drag, you can click these arrows here to move things around. Like if you want to, if you realize, oops, I didn't mean to make that change, you can, click the arrow here. It will pull it back to that side. But that's because we rearranged that if. We changed the font. That was the main thing we did. And then everything below there is the same. Change the font there. We rearranged this if, and everything below there is the same as before. So that's looking good. We added these new font files. We deleted the old font file. That's good. We need to make a commit message. We added the font file. We fixed example script for built-in screens. Those are the two things we did. So we want to go ahead and push this. So you can see here, again, this is another window that it shows you as part of the Git process. You can see origin. It's going to be pushing to, my copy of the repository, because that's what origin is. It's going to make it in this new branch here, change font. And it looks like there have been some PRs and merges that have been made since the last time I updated. So there's actually some commits listed here from all of those that are not part of my stuff, but they're listed because my they haven't been pushed yet into my repository. I haven't updated it since they got merged upstream in Adafruit's repository. So those show here. But if we look, if we click on individual commits here, we can see just the changes that come from those commits. So I can click on the commit that I just made right there, and I can see the actual things that I changed today listed right there. So that does all look good. Again, we want to make sure that says origin so that it's pushing to my repository and nobody else's. Can push. So now, if we come back to display text, GitHub does this really nice thing right here where it says, hey, we noticed that there was a push on a different branch just a second ago. So it says, you know, Foamy Guy changed font, had recent pushes. Do you want to compare it and make a pull request? Well, yes, that's exactly what we want to do. So you can click on the button there, and it will preset these things up for you. Sometimes it doesn't do a great job of this depending on how the repositories are. But it looks like it did pretty good today. It says, you know, we want to pull from Foamy Guy change font into Adafruit master, which is exactly right. Adding font with license file. I'll make that the name of the PR since that was really the main thing we were doing. But I'll leave a note here that says also fix one of the examples for built-in screens. I'll also reference the other PR that mentioned this, just so that they're shown as tied together. 106. Font change as mentioned in 106. 106. Okay. Preview, that looks fine. Create. All right, and then, yeah, basically we'll just make sure that the actions are going to pass, and if the actions pass, then we can request a review. All right, yeah, I noticed the change here was massive, but that's because it added this whole file, which has a bunch of stuff in it. That's the example that I changed. That looks fine. This is also, yeah, I changed the font there. I changed around the if statement. Got rid of Helvetica Bold, added League Spartan, added this license. Yeah, okay, that all looks good. So we'll make sure that passes, and then we can request a review. And once this one gets merged, then we can go back and finish up the other one. While we're here, I think the last thing I'll do before I cut the stream for today is I will make an issue about the anchored point, anchored position not working for bitmap label. Let's just make sure none of these are for that already. No. Okay. New issue. Setting anchor point and anchor position in constructor. Looking for bitmap label. Let's just, we'll post the text from the error as well. So to get that, I think what I'll do is just rerun the original code. So I got my edited one here in Mu, but we'll rerun the original one. This will crash, and we can use this traceback. Control-Shift-C. If you want to copy out of the serial console here in Mu, you can do that with Control-Shift-C. Here we go. Okay. Let me just also mention that label is unaffected by this issue. Okay, so now we can put that there. I'll probably come back and fix that at some point. Kmatch made bitmap label. Maybe he'll find this issue and fix it. But if not, then I'll come back and figure out what's going on, because it definitely should work. The idea is that it should work with both. So we want to get that fixed up. But I'll leave an issue here for now. That way it's referenced. That way it's like, you know, documented somewhere that there's a problem. Oops, it looks like this did fail build. Oh, we got approved already. What is what failed? Pre-commit. Fix end of files. My guess is it's mad because there's not an empty end of file fixer trailing white space. I think it's probably mad because there's not an empty line at the end of this. I don't know why things like that, but let's try it. Does it say just these two files? OFL League Spartan bold.license, yeah. Although, is this gonna need the reuse one merged in order to pass? I'm not sure. That might be the case, actually. I don't know if this is gonna pass if the reuse one's not merged. Let's see what it does this time. Okay, I'll let that run. I made my issue here, so that's documented for later. That's the original one, which can't pass because there's no license file for the font. So that's what we were originally fixing. Yeah, I think it's gonna probably still be mad because it doesn't have pre-commit set up, but maybe not, I don't know. We'll see if it passes. Anyway, though, I think that's probably okay. You don't necessarily need to sit here while this thing runs along. So that's probably good for today. If you hung out and watched this live stream, thank you. I appreciate it. If you are watching this in the future, thank you for watching. I hope you found it enjoyable. I hope it shed some light on CircuitPython development and is interesting to you, and makes you want to play with CircuitPython things, because I think CircuitPython is really cool. So again, thanks for checking it out, and I'll talk to you guys later. See ya.